Welcome to the next episode of Voice AI Podcast. Super happy to host Justin Robbins, who is the founder of Metric Sherpa. Justin, welcome. And can you introduce the company?
Thank you. Yeah, it's great to be here. Metric Sherpa is an independent analyst firm that was really birthed out of my background in CX operations. I often found myself looking for not just data on what's happening in the space, but how do I action that? How do I do something about it?
Yeah.
And, our focus is really serving both solution providers, investors, but most importantly, business leaders to say, hey, we hear a lot of noise, right? We come to an event even like CCW, you hear a lot of noise. What's the meaningful signal inside of all of that? What does it mean for you?
Yeah.
But most importantly, where and how you take action. That's at the core of what we do.
Okay. Super interesting. Like, how do you get data? Like, where do you get data from, like, to make these decisions from?
We do a number of primary research pieces every year. And for us, we're often looking at what are the questions people are asking, but don't have the answers to, or it's been a number of years since it's been explored. So we certainly do surveys both to consumers as well as business leaders. I always love juxtaposing the two. What do consumers say and what do business leaders think is reality?
Okay.
So we do a lot through that. We do a number of focus groups. But honestly, the most meaningful thing for me is I make it a habit every week of connecting with one or two leaders just for maybe 30 minutes of virtual coffee to hear what's going on in their world. What are they thinking about? Where are they struggling?
Okay.
And that often is the driving force behind what we study deeper.
And what's like top three recent learnings, maybe?
Yeah, right now we just got out of a study on the state of knowledge in organizations.
Oh, wow.
We think about the capability, right, that automation and artificial intelligence can unleash inside of our organizations. A lot of that comes down to not just data, but most specifically knowledge, and how is knowledge captured and curated and maintained inside of our organizations.
Yeah.
So we wanted to understand what is the state of knowledge, and that study's coming out very soon, but I will tell you, it exposes vulnerabilities for organizations that you'll probably be aware of already, but it puts some interesting light, I think, on some of those places where people struggle. Is one I'm really excited about right now is we hear a lot of people talk about what they might do if AI realizes some sort of savings inside of their organization. But I haven't seen anybody really study, well, what would business leaders say? If I gave you a hypothetical cost savings of whatever X percentage, what would you do with that savings? Would you reinvest it? Would you choose to let people go? So that's number two for me. And number three, as we go into the later part of the year, again, with the conversation of AI on multiple fronts, we hear about how it may elevate the role of the frontline associate. And what does that really look like? We're going to be studying what are some things and practices that organizations are already putting in place to mature their workforce.
All right. So three things you mentioned: knowledge, cost saving, like how they're going to use the savings, right? Super interesting questions, by the way. And third, like the role of analyst, the frontline workers, right? How it's going to evolve. Very, very interesting. So let's start with the knowledge. Like, I fully agree that knowledge is the cornerstone of, like, if you want to do, especially like voice, but I guess it applies to any AI agent, right? Like, if you want to have like these agents behave properly, like talk to customers properly, they are gonna, use the knowledge that you provide. That's how the architecture works, right? But in majority of the companies, if not all the companies, that knowledge is not up to date, is like old, is wrong. And same for us, actually. In our support, like, we started learning that actually our help desk, public help desks that we have, the knowledge is like as 80% accurate, right? But 20% not maintained. The way we have identified it is that because we deployed some AI agents, and then the feedback was like, okay, why are they responding like this? So is that what you're observing with enterprises as well?
Yeah, we're seeing a few things. One, you still have so much knowledge that the only place it exists is here. And you've got subject matter experts that don't take the time or don't think to take the time to document and make what sits inside of their head accessible at scale. That's certainly one of the things that we see. I call them blind spots. Lots of blind spots inside of organizations where knowledge becomes outdated or just absent. Honestly, people ask the question, and there isn't a culture of. I think of knowledge-centered support, or KCS, as one of the kind of the principles of, how do you approach knowledge management effectively?
Yeah.
There aren't these cultures of how do we create and maintain knowledge in a meaningful way. And that's what we see.
I've never seen a company that does it. There is no incentive to do that, like strong, like pain or something, right?
There's not.
But now it's going to change. With AI, it's going to change, right? Because these agents, AI agents, need that knowledge to operate.
Well, and if you think about it, even for organizations that do it in pockets well, it's often because you have a very passionate champion who's willing to do that. And what I think is really interesting.
And then they leave the company and like it's just like,
well, that's another problem. But to your point about AI unleashing capability from a knowledge standpoint, I think if we identify that passionate champion who was already doing it and frustrated that nobody else wanted to jump on board, you put them now in partnership with an AI agent who is willing to take their guidance.
That's the future.
Incredible potentials unleashed.
That's the future. Like we see that, like the reason I'm passionate about it is because like we see that like right now in our company, like for like 7 years, we wanted to make sure our help desks are updated. I mean, they are updated. Like probably like we are ahead of like 90% of companies out there.
Yeah.
But the moment it like the time it became a pain is when we started deploying these AI agents. Now, because they started just like use that knowledge and say wrong things to the customer. So we started losing money. So it's like the real incentives. Fascinating. Do you believe that it's possible to automatically generate the knowledge, like, and keep up to date? Like, do you see solutions like that?
I do. I think automatically generating knowledge, absolutely,
like based on conversations, right?
Absolutely is possible. I think that the cautionary asterisk that I'll throw in there is you can't just trust and leave whatever it generates as absolute truth.
Sure.
And as long as there's a practice to say, hey, as new knowledge is created, we are going and we are fact checking, we are governing it in a thoughtful way. Absolutely. So much today. I mean, I think about my time running contact centers. There are so many things that would have been helpful knowledge articles had we just been able to mine and create something to start with.
Yeah.
I even think about that as a writer today. The hardest part is writing the first draft. Once you get into editing, it's that much easier. And I encourage business leaders to think of it that way. How can you use artificial intelligence to create the first draft and then iterate and revise from there?
Yeah. Love it. All right. So that's number one. Second is cost savings, right? And reinvestments. What are your findings? Like, I'm very curious. Is it going to be reinvested?
We haven't asked the question yet.
Oh, you haven't?
We're about to go into research this, and I'll tell you what my hypothesis is right now. I think you have a lot of organizations who, at levels inside of the organization, they're saying that, oh my goodness, if we're able to be more efficient, then we are going to elevate the role of the frontline associate. But I see people in the positions of authority often are moving contrary to that. And maybe me, the operations leader, am really well-intended, and I want to be able to enable my people to take on more complicated and difficult things. But maybe someone in finance or some level above me may say, hey, if we've recognized this as a savings to the business, depending on the health of the business, it's their job to make uncomfortable decisions that, let's be honest, companies don't always have a great track record of making financial decisions that are great for the long run, right? It's often, what do we need to accomplish in a short period of time? So my bet is, depending on the level of the person answering the survey, we're going to see a number of folks at the operations level who are saying it's going to be reinvested or in some level of maturing. But the higher I get up inside of the organization, it's going to be maybe a more global view of where can we drive impact with the organization based off of the savings that are realized in the contact center.
Yeah. I think like we're going to see all these kinds of decisions, right? Which makes sense. I mean, it's a business. They like these people run business, and they know very well what makes sense for the business to be like more efficient, like where to grow. So we're going to see all of that. But I'm always curious, like if you sort of increase the self-serve, right? Self-serve, and so you have cost savings. Are people going to be willing to invest in like making this more complicated, like handling of the more complicated cases, like better, right? And have better, like more happy customers on that side, or not? Like this is I'm just like very curious personally about that.
Yeah.
Like if you want to share your personal opinion, I know it's like you haven't asked the question yet, but
No, but well, so I think there's two things at play. One is the assumption that the efficiency that we gain from AI and automation won't be replaced by other different difficult tasks. And what I know from all of the decades of contact centers being in existence, that adding more channels hasn't decreased the total workload that's going into most contact centers. It hasn't actually increased complexity. It's only added to it. And if I were to place the bet, I do think that AI is going to help us realize efficiency at scale. But I think there won't be this sudden, chasm of all of this free time. I think the natural evolution of contacts and organizations is other work is going to be created, and there's going to be things that are filling in the back. I mean, think about you and I, you get a block of free time in your schedule. How often do you just sit and relax and embrace it? Something else fills it.
Yeah.
We are going to see that. What that turns out to be, I think, is yet to be determined, but I don't believe the workload for organizations is going to decrease. I only believe it's going to go up.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that makes sense. At least like one explanation for that, at least I have in mind, like for calling like service or voice, is that there is like a large line or like wait line when you call like a lot of companies, right? And as you reduce it, probably more people are going to call in because it just becomes more convenient to place the call. And then like the volume on the calls is going to go up, right? I don't know, like that's hard. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that will not happen. We'll see.
I'll tell you, this is when I was in my my consulting days, the two things we saw most often is that most organizations are actually understaffed, right? That was just a reality.
Yeah.
And part of that was they actually had a really bad understanding of their shrinkage, which another time is the time lost productivity, right? Because of all these things that have to happen during the day. So, I think that, again, where we see efficiencies gained, we're going to have other places where it's going to get filled in.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. So like last one, like the last point you said about the role change, the change of the role of frontline workers. I am at the opinion that like there is going to, so first of all, like deploying and implementing, maintaining these AI systems is very difficult. And I don't think it's going to be easy because again, like from knowledge management perspective, from tuning perspective, from customization perspective, you need professionals to do that, right? So that's going to be a new role, whatever it's called, right? But like, what are your thoughts on that? Like, are you going to need like 1,000 people doing that? Probably not, right? Like, it's at the scale, I don't know, you will probably be able to do it in order of magnitude with less people, these things, but I don't know, like what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that the scale will certainly vary, not just on the size of the organization, but the complexity and the length to which they're deploying these throughout their service interactions or however they're using it inside of their business. Talking to a number of companies today, I'm already seeing them starting to badge frontline associates in these roles where they are shaping and coaching and guiding AI as it's being deployed inside of their customer interactions, which I think is fascinating. I love it. The genesis of the whole research piece for me is I was sitting it down from a friend of mine is a very senior level, a good friend of mine is a very senior level leader at one of the large financial services firms. And what he said to me was, he said, Justin, we have teams who will figure out the technical side of AI. I'm not worried about that.
Yeah.
What I'm worried about is what do I need to be doing today to prepare my team for what their job's going to look like in 6, 12, or 18 months from now? Is that nobody can tell me what that looks like. Nobody can tell me how I should think about maturing them to work with AI or the other responsibilities that they might have in front of them. That's what got me fascinated about this, because I think you're right. There's the opportunity to train AI and be involved in that in ways that we don't even realize right now. But then what else? And how do we best equip people for the what else?
Yeah. Nobody knows that, but that's why it's so interesting and exciting, right? As an industry. Well, Justin, thanks so much for stopping by and sharing your insights.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's an absolute pleasure.